Hey everybody, Reefgrrl here, and welcome to Reefgrrl Live. I am so happy you could make it. The whole idea here is to have some fun, chat, get some questions answered, maybe show off what you're doing, and get to know each other a little bit better. So sit back, relax, grab a drink. The stream is about to begin. Hey everybody, thanks for joining in. I came and sat down in this chair about 4 minutes ago after setting everything up, and there were 49 comments already. That's awesome. So let me say hi to everybody in the chat. I do have a guest waiting in the studio. Hey Alex. And once we get through the introductions and the greetings, I will bring Alex in. He's always got interesting stuff going on. So number one tonight was JV Gwaltney. Now, ask me why I know how to pronounce his name properly now. I used to say Yavi. It's JV because JV has started a YouTube channel. There's a video there. There might be more. I haven't looked in the last couple days. And he is documenting his tank experiences. So if you're interested, go on over and check it out and see what he's got to offer and show him some support. So, JV, good evening. You are first. Benny Fernandez is second. That's great. Who else have we got? Click Clacks. Click Clacks is third. That's good. I hope everyone's keeping well with all that's going on in everywhere in the world. Tony Close, UK Reef. GTA 5 Vids. Calypsos Reefs. Hi, you guys. What else? Straight Reefers here. Nice to see a straight reefer. Who else is here? Wow, you guys are chatting. That's really awesome. Oh, there's Alex G's Aquarium saying hi to everybody. Comments just jumped. Skookum Chuck Reefers here. Hello, Jessica J. ATF in the house. Nice to see you here, ATF in the house. Jay Carey is here. Jay Carey, you're early tonight. That's nice. Angel Nieves. Did I say that right? Probably not. I do my best, but you know. Broke Reef Man 45. Mo's Nano Reefs. Hey, Mo. Mo, the video's coming out tomorrow talking about the special gadget about which I was very excited. And I finally, today, finished the editing and uploaded it. So now I just have to do all the details and publish. So that'll be tomorrow morning. So everybody, tomorrow morning, we're going to be publishing a video about something from Mo's Nano Reefs. You could probably guess what it is. Lynn Reef Nerd. Hello, Lynn. We would love to have a tour of your fish room if you feel like it. Hey, American Reefing. Straight Reefer. Frosted Frog Aquariums. Good evening. AZ Reefer has a question. All right, let's put that up on the screen and you guys can look at it. I know it's not good to take sand out of an established tank, but what about adding sand to a 2-year-old tank? I know there's a way to do it. I'd be willing to bet Fish of Hex has talked about this. So that might be a place you can look, but maybe the chat can help you out with that. Hey, Davis Jew number 1. Dawn, how are you doing? Mo, yes, it is working well, and I actually really like it. Okay, that's a hi to everyone who's here right now. So I'm really glad you could join in on a Saturday night when we're, I guess, us reefers practice social distancing all the time, don't we? Except when there are coral shows. And speaking of coral shows, anyone who's familiar with the Niagara Coral Show that was to be held next weekend, March 21st and 22nd. It's been postponed into July. I had decided earlier this week I wasn't going to go because I'm immunocompromised. I've been diabetic for about 45 years and I did not feel I could take the risk. But good for them. They've taken steps to arrange for further dates into July. And if you're interested and you're within the region of the area, if it's within a drive of you and you want to go, it's going to be in July. So in Niagara Falls. Hey, Marcus's Reef, Santiago Reefing. Nice to see you here, Will. GTA 5 vids. My day's going great so far. Got a lot done today and had some unexpected extra maintenance yesterday when we were changing the UV sterilizer bulb, but we can talk about that later if there's a lull in the conversation. And I'm sure everybody is waiting for Alex. So let me find that, take that away for the moment. Anyone else pop in before I get Alex in here? Okay. There's Alex. Oh, he turns his back on us and we put the camera on his back. How are you doing, Alex?
Not bad. Evening, everybody.
Nice
So,
to meet you.
sorry I haven't been around the last few weeks. Just been busy with stuff. So.
Yep, that's okay. I know what that's like. Saturday night is about the only regular thing for me these days.
I'll flip it around a more pleasant view.
Nice. For us, anyway.
Yeah.
Put you up full screen.
So, just been really busy. Had a little bit of a boo-boo today.
Uh-oh.
Well, I was gonna start prepping a water change, and I had my salt standing by, and my barrel's full of water, and well, I shouldn't say I have my salt standing by, but I had my barrels already, 100 gallons in each one, so ready for a 200-gallon change. I said, I'm going to start my recirculation pump and heater, go upstairs and grab salt. So I did that. I came downstairs with all my salt bags, and I looked at my tanks, and I go, how come one says it's down 20 gallons and the other one's down 10? Well, I forgot to close the valve to dump the water in my tank when I turned my pump on. So
no.
I pumped 30 gallons of fresh water into my system.
Yes, not something that has never happened to us, because I'm sure it's all happened to us. And at the scale of the water volume you have, what was the impact on your salinity? Was it anything?
It technically went from 1.026 to 1.025, but I just kind of took a measurement on my frag tank, so might not have even done that. Either way, I added some salt in, let it circulate around for an hour, and back up to 26.
Good.
So I just got to take an extra 30 gallons out when I do my water change tomorrow, since I still have to make back the rest of my 30 gallons I dumped in.
Yep. Hi, Grundy Reef. I put your comment up on the screen just to let you know I did see you. And I would say hi when I got a chance. I don't think I've seen you here before, so welcome. Yeah, I was doing UV sterilizer bulb change. Well, I say I, but you know, it was my husband who was doing it because he's the one that can reach all the way back to the back of the sump cabinet and get all the little screws out and et cetera, et cetera. And part of that whole process was removing the skimmer because we dropped a washer down there somewhere. And when I pulled the skimmer, I realized how dirty it was. So we pulled it out for maintenance, and it's still half sitting in my kitchen because I haven't done it yet. So these things happen. Hey, Derby City Reefer. Hi, Tina's Reef. So, Alex, have you been traveling much for work and had to leave your tank?
No, and I'll actually be seeing it a whole lot more because I'm working from home for the foreseeable future. So
yes, like a lot of people. Yep. Hey, Chimp the Reefer. Yeah, my son-in-law is a carpenter in a theater union, so he builds movie sets and things like that. He built the bridge of the Romulan spaceship, just so you know. And
well, as a Star Trek fan, I appreciate that.
Now you'll know what to watch for. They give him all the hard stuff because he does math. So anyway, he's working next week, but then after that, they've shut down, so he's going to be off as well.
Yeah, I actually, I needed to grab a little bit anyways, but just grabbed a little extra salt to have on hand because I was due for a water change. And
yeah.
So, but no, everybody's been doing pretty good. I added some more Royal Grammas to my tank.
Nice.
So I did have one that didn't make it, but I'm up to 7 Royal Grammas now, just kind of rebuilding my harem back there. You can see the big ones kind of in the center. That was the original one from my original group a couple years ago, and just started adding in some more. So,
Hmm.
and I also got a lovely new bubble coral, which while it is a good, 5-6 inches across, looks quite tiny compared to the other one. So,
Yes.
but I moved my green sinularia out of that area, which I really did not understand. That thing's like a foot across, and I moved it into my green sinularia farm here. So the still a little closed up. It's this one up front, and then the one behind it's a frag, and the one behind it's another frag. So
Wow.
I got a couple that I got to get out. I got to frag up some more, and then my Bali, or not Bali, Biota Palau green sinularia is back there, which you could see just how different the colors are between them.
Hmm.
That one really pops, but I still enjoy the traditional one, and I even have way in the back there, kind of a lime or a mint green one that I inherited from my sister's tank.
Nice.
So,
Hey, producer. Hey, producer Reef. Nice to see you. That's cool. Well, it's one of those things. It is exactly like tending a garden. We move things around. We trim them back. We replant others. Like it's so much like that, except so much more complicated.
and my giant Bali zinnia is growing very nicely. I've been incredibly happy with this.
Beautiful.
I have not seen one in a long time, so it was quite refreshing to get a hold of a Fraga one. So it was my Stereoneptheas back there. The one's closed up right now, but the one in the back's open, and then the pink one that's like center screen is grown really nicely. It's probably about triple size from when I got it.
Yep. We have Tina in the waiting room. Tina, we'll bring you in just a second. Benny has a question. He has 6 fish in his 40-gallon breeder, which is the new tank he's just set up. And fancy clowns, Midas Blenny, Yellow Watchman, Goby, 6-line wrasse, and sailfin tang. What else can I add? Well, my first impression is to say the sailfin tang isn't going to be small for very long, small enough for that tank for very long. So what do you think, Alex? Would you add more fish to that in a 40-gallon breeder?
Pair of clowns, Midas Blenny, Yellow Watchman, Goby, 6-line wrasse. I would probably say in a 40-gallon that you are full for the moment. Maybe something like a firefish that's very small, or maybe like a Royal Gramma. But I don't know if you have a sump or anything on the 40, but generally fish-wise, that sounds like a pretty good stocking level to me, just because I could see like a 6-line could get rather aggressive. Even a Watchman Goby, they can get a little grumpy sometimes. I know now I'm looking for mine, but he's back there. I can't see him, but it's a pretty good amount of fish in a 40.
Yeah.
If it was gonna, like I said, if it's gonna be anything else, maybe like a Royal Gramma or a Firefish would be a good choice. Or maybe if you had a Watchman Goby, add a pistol shrimp to pair with it.
That would be,
cool
yeah,
addition.
that would be really interesting. Some of the inverts you can add always are really fun to watch for.
Yeah, I mean, something like a pair of cleaner shrimp would be good, or ones I particularly like, although sometimes they don't seem to be. Oh, now I can't think of the name of them. They're not peppermint shrimp.
Coral banded shrimp.
Yeah, that's it. Coral bandits.
Yeah.
A pair of coral bandits is really cool to have together. they'll spawn, and generally they'll kind of hang out under a rock. And while they do have the big, intimidating looking claws, they don't usually bother fish. They'll generally mess around with other shrimp, if anything else.
Right. Oh, that's good to know. I would love to have a coral banded, but I've not put one in Mollywood because I have 3 peppermints in there right now.
The ones I like, the ones that have the golden bands on them.
Yep.
A pair of those, just because they have such long antennas, and they generally will kind of hang out under a rock. You'll always see those antennas kind of hanging out. Just really cool to have.
Yep. This is funny. Who was it that's just said this? GT. Oh, no, I can't find the comment about being. Oh, yeah, WVU Reefer. Hello from COVID-free WV, West Virginia. Well, good for you. You're so lucky. Hey, Sean's Fish Tanks. Tony Close, Bongos Reef. Hey, well, look at that. Hello, Lynn Reef Nerd, and thank you very much. Happy Pi Day to you, too. I'm assuming people know what Pi Day is. I know it because my daughter and her husband were in Egypt the year of the Arab Spring on Pi Day. So that's when we learned all about that. That's cool. Hey, Scott Morrison from Scotland. I think everybody's doing pretty good. Let's bring Tina in and see what's happening. I think I see a tank. Hi, Tina.
Hello.
Hi, Tina.
Hello.
Sorry for the wait. You've got nice dark blue lights on your tank right now.
I'm sorry. Hi, everybody.
No, don't apologize.
Yeah, it's dark here right now, so I kind of can't help that, but at least you can see the tank.
How have you been?
Day to day.
Yeah. Have you had your foot surgery yet?
Nope, that's what I'm getting ready for on the 24th.
Okay.
Got lots
Yep.
of reconstruction that needs to be done yet again. Hopefully for
Wow.
the last time. Uh-oh, my phone's dying.
Oh dear. Yeah, you sound a bit echoey. Oh, did we lose her? Oh, well, Tina, I'm glad. Yeah, I can still see her too. Tina, I'm glad you could come in. Alex, I'll put you up full screen again. Get some pretty things to look at here. Love your fish. Absolutely. And your harem there of, I don't know if that's what you call them, of royal grandmas. I would love to have several. I love having lots of a kind of fish. And of course, I've never had a tank big enough for lots, but soon.
They're still kind of getting acclimated. I mean, they got pretty small ones, and there's a little concern that the big one back there might have, got a little aggression, but no, not really. It kind of just said, "You're all with me now."
So we had a question about removing sand. Let me go back and find it. I want to try and answer it. It was very early on when we were still saying hi to everybody. And I apologize. Oh, here we go. AZ Reefer. I know it's not good to take sand out of an established tank, but what about adding sand to a 2-year-old tank? Any advice on that there, Alex?
Sorry, I muted myself for a second there. I would say this was to add it, right?
Yeah.
I would say if you're going to add sand, just do it a little slow. If it's dry sand, definitely want to take your time. If it's a live sand, that's just a bacterial additive, give it, I wouldn't dump it all in at once because you don't want to disrupt the balance that you have in a good established tank. So it's always a good idea to kind of take it slow. Even if it's dry sand or some kind of live sand that, it could have some die off in it. You just don't want to shock the system any.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would also recommend rinsing. And the only reason I say that is that the 90-gallon holding tank I'm setting up, I added 2 bags of sand, to about 40 pounds. And I thought I had enough in there. I did not rinse it, and I'm paying the price now because everything is covered in sediment and crud. So I'm having to clean everything up, including the canister filter, before I add the next 20 pounds of sand, because it turns out I do need it. And I really, really regret not rinsing those first 2 bags. So I would say if you're adding more sand, do it really slowly and really rinse it well in RODI water if you can. If you can't and you have to use tap water, then I would make sure you rinse it in a container, then rinse it again with some sort of a water conditioner, and then try and let it dry out before you actually use it, so that you don't have any residual chlorines or chloramines or whatever's might be in the water.
Actually, I used to, a lot of the reason I used to buy things like Aragalive was not really for the bacteria that is in it, but the fact that they wash the sand.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
with this tank, I did not do that. And I just made sure when I did the dust, I knew it was going to have a lot of dust in it. I had my tank drained somewhat when I did it.
Yeah.
So it did kick up some stuff, but if not, another way to try to limit dust is to use like a piece of PVC and a funnel and kind of, scoop it into that and then let it kind of ride that tube down to the bottom.
Yeah. Benny says he has a sump. So that's what you had mentioned there, Alex. I didn't think he did, but I'm thinking now maybe it was his other tank that didn't have the sump. So that having a sump adds more water volume, which allows a slightly higher bioload as long as you have enough filtration media, biofiltration.
Yeah, if that's the case in like a 40, I would say the Firefish or Grama. I wouldn't get anything that would get large or, with that 6 line being in there. It's hard to say how it'll act with new tank mates.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes they'll leave everybody alone that's been there, but newcomers might not get a warm welcome. So
that's one of those things that is really difficult to balance, is your community of fish, because I know the wisdom is to add fish in reverse order of aggression. So you put the least aggressive fish in first so they can establish their own territories, and then you work your way up the chain to whatever the most aggressive is of what you plan to add. So what happens if you do that and you get halfway through and your least aggressive fish don't make it? You can't add them.
there's a few different things I've found over the years. And this is just working in a local fish store and just having all the tanks over the years, dealing with aggressive, non-aggressive, and sometimes you got to play a little game of chance and see if you're going to have bad actors. Sometimes fish that you don't expect to be aggressive will be.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do have an issue where somebody's being overly aggressive, you can take a couple of measures I found. You can jail them and, put confinement acclimation box, or better yet, down in a sump and leave them there for a week or so and let everybody reestablish. Sometimes a rearrange of the aquascape will work, but that's also putting a lot of extra stress on everybody.
Right.
You could throw a mirror in front of the tank for a few days. Sometimes it's when you're adding docile fish and there's somebody that's aggressive, is how many fish you're adding to the tank at one time can sometimes help balance it.
Oh, right. Sort of distribute it.
Yeah, a good example, when I had my angels in this tank, I started off and I had my annularis angel, the the Coral Beauty and the Flame Angel, and I added them all at once, and they got established. And I wanted, an Emperor, a Majestic, and a Blueface. And I took the step of adding all three at the same time, and that helped. That helped the Annularis not be as big of a jerk when it came to the other angels in the tank, because there were too many targets to go after, and it kind of tires them out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess it's always one of those kind of trial and error things. There's never really a way to avoid some of that, whatever you do. So Grundy Reef has a Durasa clam and is asking how often to feed it. Have you had a lot of experience with clams, Alex? I haven't.
I used to have like a dedicated clam tank a long time ago. A lot of the thought has changed on them. So if you're talking about feeding, I would assume you're talking about feeding things like phytoplankton in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that kind of whenever you want. I know when there was a lot of school of thought for a long time that baby clams under 4 inches needed to be fed directly, but that, from what I've read in some scientific papers, was disproven, and they're photosynthetic right away.
Oh, I see. I had thought that was the case, where the tiny ones were a little more difficult unless you fed them.
They can be. So the biggest things I found that are challenging with clams is you have to watch out for pests and things picking at them. I had a couple clams going in this tank for a while, and I started having some water quality issues and had a couple wrasses picking at them. Unfortunately, I lost them. And one of them, I know that it had a damaged foot, because if they get that foot damage, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll recover, sometimes they will not. But generally in feeding, I mean, you could throw phytoplankton and stuff in the water, but clams, they're pretty easy going as long as they have pretty good water quality. They don't mind phosphates. They don't mind nitrates. At least a lot of literature I read a long time ago, they were one of the few animals that could pull phosphates out of the water and absorb them and utilize them. But, I mean, if you want, it can't hurt them if they're not attached to anything. I generally kept things like Duraces on the sand, as long as you're not trying to remove them from a rock.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to target feed, you can put them in a little bowl and throw a little phytoplankton in there with them for a bit, but you don't really have to.
Oh, interesting. Hey, STL Reefer, thanks for coming in. And who else did I see? Hey, Johnny Martinez, glad you could make it. Dramedy is here. Wow, we've got 36 people watching. That's wonderful. I hope I haven't missed anybody. I am trying to say hi to everyone. Anna Maria Dunn is in. Mermaid's Reef. Hey, Mermaid's Reef. How are you? No foot damage from Grundy Reef. Yeah, my Crocea clam was in one of those little cement trays when I got them from the fish store and was doing very well. The position I had it in was close to a small arch that I have in the front of my tank. And one morning I came out and it was rotated about 90 degrees in the tray. And I was pretty sure, and I still am pretty sure, that a snail, one of my giant hamster-sized turbo snails, crawled by on the arch and forced it to turn. So I was really worried about it, but it seems to be fine. It is still turned, and not much of the foot is actually in the tray. I think it's gripping the edge of the tray. And it opens. It's got beautiful color. It responds to Reef. When I feed Reef, it has a great feeding response. So I'm thinking maybe I dodged a bullet there. It might have been okay, even though it was dislodged from that tray, because that's what worried me, was that its foot had got damaged.
Yeah, actually, sometimes they'll reorientate themselves.
Yeah, that's what I
So
had read. Yeah.
it's not uncommon. A lot of the clams I used to keep in my one tank years ago, I'd have several of them that they'd sit up vertical towards the metal halides I had, but then a lot of them that I had a little closer to the glass because I generally kept all mine on the sand so I could kind of give them a little maintenance here and there with scrubbing shells and everything. Uh, they would turn themselves to face the glass in part, I've always believed, because they were trying to pick up the reflection of the light.
Oh, that would make sense.
So they do have some they do have eyes, and um, they can move a lot more than what people think. Sometimes they can't go swimming through the water necessarily, but
Hmm.
they can move themselves around a bit when they want.
I think a really interesting video would be about things that can move themselves in your reef tank that you didn't realize. And I'm not even talking about expanding and growing and encrusting and spreading out. I'm talking about actually moving from one place to another. Things like hairy mushrooms, and my weepy toadstool is moving. And I guess clams could be added to that. Fungia plate corals, they
Yeah,
can move
tongue
themselves.
corals, they'll move themselves.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool, is to top 6 reef inhabitants that will move when you least expect it, not including anemones.
Yeah, they're a strange group because sometimes they never move anywhere, and
Yeah.
I just had this one bubble tip over here. It actually crawled up that branch for a few days, and I was like, oh no, we're on the move.
Mm.
And then it went back to where it was. So,
I guess the grass wasn't greener.
and then this thing just gets bigger and bigger.
Well, Benny, he had a firefish, but I had firefish, but they jumped on his old tank, even with the lid. He's hoping to get a royal grandma and maybe later on a green mandarin. I think you showed your green mandarin a little earlier there, Alex.
Yeah, I got a pair of spotteds in here.
Nice.
So in a 40-gallon, doesn't sound like you had any other fish that would really be going after pods. And with a sump, um, you could probably have a decent enough pod population for one. I know Biota Palau, or just Biota, their tank raised ones will take pellets and such.
Right.
So that would probably be the option I'd go with. Or, if you don't have a high population of pods, or you're not sure if you introduce one, you have to watch them. Pretty
Yeah.
much all mandarins, at least wild ones, when they come in, are generally very skinny. So it's just a matter of watching their belly. And now that I'm trying to find mine, it gets a little hard to find them sometimes in here.
I can imagine.
All right, now where'd you go? Probably gonna be right in front of me. Oh, there's the male back there. Well, he's under the pavona. There he is. So, but generally, not uncommon to see their belly will be really distended.
Hmm.
Might almost look kind of bony. And sometimes with mandarins, I mean, that's just when they're wild caught. I mean, they're kind of going through holding tanks and stuff. Generally, they're not going to be getting target fed or in environments where there's pods.
Right.
But once they get into a tank, if they get a good population, that you can see on the belly there is nice and it's not. This one's not necessarily fat, but it's nice and smooth. So
Yeah.
if you get one and you're not sure if it's thriving, is keep an eye on their belly. So
Yeah. Oh, and Benny also has a Maxima clam and a rainbow BTA in his 40-gallon breeder. That's going to fill up fast. It'll be nice to see that grow in.
Yeah, I gotta get some clams. I saw there were some gigas available, and
Really?
yeah, Live Aquaria had some.
I didn't think you could get those very
There's-
readily.
Well, it's whenever the farms have got them producing, a lot of those clams are not. The majority of the clams that are farmed out there are for food.
Yeah,
they
you know
are
what?
not.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah, they're not for ornamental sales generally. I mean, it's always been a fairly low percentage of clams from what I've ever read and seen that are worthy of the aquarium trade. But yeah, those farms are, a lot of them are for food because they originally started because they were
Of
you
course.
know they were going in and just taking too many, and they were becoming extinct and
Yeah.
eating them for food.
Yep. So Anna Maria Dunn is asking, I think, about your clown trigger, what the fish is with the black dots on the bottom underbelly. That's the clown trigger, right?
Yeah, this
There
would
he
be the
is.
clown. This would
Oh,
be
man.
Smiley. If you look at the tail, he's got a smiling face. Which
What an awesome
Well-
fish.
we'll see how he does because he got entered into the Reef to Reef Photo of the Month contest.
Okay, well,
So-
good luck with that. That's awesome. And do you have any words of wisdom about a pipefish? Anna Maria is asking about that as well. And I saw your pipefish in here. At least I thought that's what it was. in one
Yeah,
of these.
I have a dragon face pipefish, and I haven't tried to get another pair going as of late. But I've had this guy for there he is back on the zoas there. I could speak to dragon face because that's the ones I've actually kept, and they the pipefish can handle a little bit more flow because they're a little more sleek. They're similar to mandarins. You got to make sure that they have a good amount of small fauna to feed on. They got a very small mouth. The one thing with any pipefish that you're going to get is if you're looking at them, make sure that you see them in a tank picking around and that their snout is in good shape. Because if that nose is damaged, which it's not hard to do with someone bagging them up, that could inhibit them from being able to eat. But I mean, that little guy there, I mean, geez, I probably had him 2 years now.
Yep. Well, did he start out in your refugium?
No, I got a pair and put him in directly.
Oh, okay.
And one didn't make it. I have subsequently tried to get one other pair, and they didn't make it. So I've been tempted to try and put 2 more in here, but I think I'm going to take the tact of waiting to see some that get established at my local store for a while, because with them you don't. All my fish that I get, I'll generally give them their last acclimation round. They're sitting pair guard, but I won't do that with pipefish. They're just too delicate.
Right.
So, but no, once this little guy's in here, I mean, he's a little champ. I mean, sometimes he'll even swim up into the high current, and I'm always kind of like, oh, you're getting close to the sea anemone or the bubble coral, but nope, he'll just move away.
Yeah, Johnny Martinez says, Alex G, awesome tank. Are those 3 intakes? He loves that setup, and I think they are. Is that right? Those are your DIY.
Yeah, I got 3 drains on each tank, 3.5 inch.
Yep.
So same in the other tank. There is 3 drains, and then they all go into a common drain line.
Yep. And Johnny, if you have some time and you really want to learn a lot about this setup, check out Alex's channel and watch the videos that he's documented this build. I think almost from day one, right, Alex? I think your very first video You had glass. You had glass in, and I think you had the interior coated.
Very first video was the glass installation on this tank.
Was it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in school at the time, and as I started getting closer to being done with that, I started doing the videos, and then, well, as of late, I generally just join your live stream.
Yeah.
I've been playing with my microscopes a lot lately. I got a new toy.
Nice. Oh
So
boy.
I
Don't
wanted to
show
compound.
me that, Alex. I'm afraid I'm going to want one and then forget it. I probably won't even ever sleep.
Yeah, well, I had my my stereo microscope, and I needed a compound, so I picked one of those up. Not a
Alex,
crazy expensive one though.
oh, well, see if you like it first.
I can answer that question.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Johnny's asking about the Kessel A360X. Is that the refugium light? Do you know?
A360X.
He's wondering how long to leave it on, how many hours per day.
If it's a if that is the refugium light, I guess it depends on whether or not you're going for a reverse cycle or just an extended. I have 3 refugium lights that stay on. Hold on, now I got to do the math. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 plus 4, 12. About 16 hours a day I keep refugium lights running.
Right.
But I have 3 different ones, so I don't run any one more than about 12 hours.
Right.
Or 14 hours maybe.
So Johnny, if yours is a refugium light, I would do a little bit of research into what people generally do. In my case, my it's my sump light is over my Kato, and I have that on for 18 hours and off for 6. STL Reefer, hello. Alex, people in the chat are discussing what they're going to trade for their toilet paper.
It's actually
pretty funny.
As much as I don't want to talk about that, I went to the grocery store a couple days ago, and while I felt that I had everything that I should need, the sheer fact that everything was being just hoarded away, I had to pick a couple things up and still waited in line for 45 minutes. And
oh boy,
my 24-hour store over here has limited their hours, so
yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we joke about it, but it's kind of a manifestation of, I guess, people feeling as if they can only take control of something like that.
Yeah.
So that's,
So, no, that's why I made sure I had some salt. I know, I hate to say, but, if you're worried about that, like, kind of basic necessities, more specialized stuff is potentially going to be a little more difficult to come by.
Yeah. Well,
not to say that it will, but you just never know.
You don't know. And I have, of course, my new grandson, and the formula that they use for him is very expensive, and it's very hard to resist trying to get to lay some by just in case things close down to where it's not going to be available. That's a pretty scary thought.
Yeah, it's like everything else. The social distancing and giving things time. I think that seems like that's the best precaution to take at this point.
Yep, I agree. So GTA 5 Vids has magnesium between 17 and 1800 parts per million. It crept up with water changes using Red Sea Coral Pro. He's fritzing to switch Blue Box starting tomorrow. I don't know, Alex, 17 to 1800. I at one time would raise mine to 1800 to control algae, just temporarily though. But I've since learned that that's really hard on some inverts, mainly
Yeah,
snails.
the snails don't like that. I mean,
Yeah.
mine used to run about 1,500, and since I've had all my issues and stuff and changed things up a bit, and now it stays more in the 1350 range.
Yeah, I like to keep mine around 1400, and GTA 5 Vids is going to start switching salt tomorrow with this water change, and really with magnesium, that's the only way to lower it is with water changes with a lower
Yeah,
content. But I would test your makeup water to make sure first.
yeah, I'd test that, but I'd also make sure too when you do a water change or you get to that point is uh, test your fresh mixed salt water and make sure that it's not at some crazy high reading before you do it, just so you
Exactly.
don't do a water change and then start going, well, why didn't it go down?
Yeah, exactly. Because it can be surprising sometimes. Hey, just got a DIY, and Hayden is here. Hello, Hayden. He's at 16 local store. Oh, I see that he's discussing something with someone in the chat that I've missed because I'm not doing a very good job keeping up with the chat. Insane Reefer. Oh, I see. Hayden is at 16 DKH. Wow. I know what it
Ooh,
feels like. I was once at 15. It is not fun. It's, yeah.
yeah, that's a
16.
really high elk.
Yeah, he's saying his fish store told him to leave it and it would come down on its own, or should he address it with a water change? I would check your makeup water again, just as for magnesium. Check what the level is, test it.
I would also recommend a secondary test
Yes, just to make sure.
at that level. I mean, if the calcium's not like precipitating out of the water and snowing,
Yeah,
yeah, you got to be real careful with lowering it. Um,
yes.
you could do a water change, but you'd have to, if things aren't dying and they're just everything's looking okay, you just got to be real careful and lowering it slowly. I mean, even raising mine in this tank a bit because I've been doing some 2-part dosing here and there to kind of keep up with things as they're growing. And I mean, even adding a little too much too quickly, I burned the tips on a couple of my acros, which was pretty surprising since it literally only raised it from like 3/10 of a DKH. So
Yeah, you just never know. And I agree. The first thing I do now, which I never used to, but the first thing I do now when I get an out of range result is double check. Hey, AL, good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to catch up a little bit with this chat, and we have Skookum Chuck Reefer in the waiting room, and he has been so patient, and I know he's been there for a while, so I'm going to bring him in. Alex just got a DIY. Oh, Paul. Alex, could that microscope give you any insight whatsoever to the water quality, or is it just a fun toy to have?
I've been using it more for research purposes. I it's just fun to watch small stuff, and I do some research on the side. Uh, Not really for anybody, just kind of another side hobby off of this.
Yep.
So once you can't zoom in anymore with the stereo microscope, it becomes a necessity to be able to zoom in more. You got to get something more powerful.
I guess you'll have to look at your floor plan in the basement and see if you can make room for that electron microscope someday.
I don't think we're gonna go to that level unless somebody like tossed it in my lap and was like, "Here you go, it's free." So
Yeah. All right, let's bring Skookum Chuck in and see how he's doing tonight with his 12-foot, 400-gallon tank. Thank you so much for waiting. I do apologize. We had a couple questions to answer. So how are you doing tonight, Skookum Chuck?
Hey, everything's
Oh, he's probably
great
gone away
here. I
now.
hope everybody's doing great over there.
Yep.
To give Reefgrrl a thumbs up. And Alex's tank, wow, that looks amazing. It's really filled in a whole bunch from the looks of it. I don't know what it looked like when he started, but wow. How many gallons? I'm just trying to remember or find out like what your water flow is from
Thank
on
you.
your
It's
return pumps.
it's about 1,700 gallons total right now, and then I might add another tank to make it about 1,800 soon.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Very
Hey,
impressive.
Awoken. Nice to see you, Awoken. Thanks for coming by. So just got a DIY. Wants to know, how much did you put in, Alex? 55-gallon drum. Okay, I don't know what that means. Maybe I missed something.
Maybe salt.
Oh, maybe salt, yeah.
I only do 200-gallon water changes at a time, so I don't get too crazy.
Oh, is that all? Okay. Well, when I have my 300-gallon with 150 gallons of support, it'll probably be 75 gallons at a time, which seems like right now I do about 10 at a time. So that's pretty crazy. Braveheart Reefer 525. Hello. I know you're in the UK and you're up in the middle of the night to join us, so that's pretty awesome. So Skookum Chuck, you told us a couple weeks ago you're going to have to move this tank. So how's that going?
Well, I'm not sure yet exactly what the time frame is, but I've kind of got an idea on how it's going to be moved. I'm going to kind of break down and sell as much of everything as I can, I think, in the meantime, to make the move a little easier. And then some things that I'll probably just replace and buy when I get on the, when the tank finally finds its new home. I've got somebody coming by this week. I guess the tank will change a little bit. The aquarium will. Somebody's going to be picking up some live rock, and they'll be taking some of the live sand away with them as well. And some of the corals will probably disappear here and there, which is okay.
So do you have a lot of reefers in your area? Like, are there a lot of people that you can draw from locally who would be able to come and get some of this stuff?
On the Sunshine Coast here, it seems to be more and more people are getting into the saltwater aquarium hobby. There is one store in Gibson's. I think the lady has it up for sale right now. It's called Oscar's Aquatics, and they sell exotic pets as well, fish, fresh and saltwater. I don't have any idea what she's asking for her shop or her store at this time. There are, a few people. There's probably more than I'm aware of that buy a lot of their stuff from J&L in town and King Ed Pets and other places on the mainland.
Right. Yeah, are you in Gibson's?
No, I'm in Seashell.
Seashell, okay. Yeah.
Gibson's is about 25 kilometers north of Gibson's.
Right. Yeah, I've been to Seashell once. It's beautiful there.
Well, hopefully you weren't disappointed.
No, actually, there was a Saturday morning market, and I ended up buying a soapstone sculpture by Barney McLeod that's different from anything else he's ever done. And I still have it. And Yep. And I still love it. And I haven't seen anything.
Stone
Yep.
carver.
Yep. Barney McLeod. And that was in 2010 that I got that. So that's what I remember from Seashell. And it was a beautiful sunny day in September.
Next time I see him, I'll have to mention that.
Yep. I even remembered his name.
Yeah.
Jessica J likes watching the clownfish snuggling with the nem in there.
Oh, well, we'll get the camera back on that. That's everybody's favorite, I think.
So does
I
the
wonder
nem?
how many people have started aquariums just for the clownfish in the nem?
Oh, Nemo, are you kidding me? So does that nem get larger during the day? Or is it that size all the time?
It's changing. I believe it's it just passed the full moon, and I was expecting it to tear itself in half. It's been pretty active the last week. It's moved probably all over that pile of rocks. And the
Wow.
clownfish have been trying to keep in one location. It's back kind of where it started, but yeah, I cleaned the power heads. That may have had something to do with it.
Alex likes your pair of blood shrimp.
Oh, thanks very much, Alex. Somebody was telling me that they look like they have go-go boots on. I'm not sure exactly where they're from, but I wasn't going to argue with it.
What? You must be very young if you don't remember go-go boots from the 60s and 70s. I sure do.
Probably.
I just like that they're out in the open. You know, like I have one blood shrimp right now, and that thing is tucked away in a cave at the back of the tank. Most people always say, "Oh, I have blood shrimp in there," and they're like, "Where are they?" I'm like, "Oh, I only see it when they come out to eat." So it's cool to see them out there.
My blood shrimp lives
They don't like
in
the light. They're definitely active at night.
Yeah.
The peppermint shrimp, except maybe if I'm down here and looking at the aquarium when the lights are out, I'll be able to spot the peppermint shrimp.
Yeah. Yeah, my blood shrimp lives
cleaners,
in the statue that I did with the Cyphastria. So all you can see at the back, one of the openings has the white tentacles sticking out.
In the statue, yeah.
Yep. Anna Maria says, good luck on the move. They are doing that too pretty soon from Florida to South Carolina. They're going to be moving a 130-gallon tank.
Wow.
Never fun. I am not looking forward to the whole switch that I have to do.
No, I guess
whatever amount of time you think it'll take to move the tank, double or triple it.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I'm staging it at my daughter's. I've got a 90-gallon that's cycling now, and I'm going to be moving the contents of my current tank slowly into that. We're about to sign an agreement on a house that's not going to be finished until November. So that gives me lots of time, but I'm sure I'll still lose a few things because, of course, my current tank is almost 3 years old now. And the way things have been looking lately is just amazing. And of course, now I have to start dismantling it. So
I've been thinking about moving and how that will go for me, and
yeah,
I believe I have at least one solution that could be helpful to anyone with a larger tank, and because just moving a tank could be difficult in my case, not possible, but as a temporary solution that would be easy and a little less expensive as to buying just another tank to stage.
Yeah. Yep.
Make an indoor pond, get a pond liner and bricks or wood and make a temporary indoor pond that you can cover.
That's a good idea.
Because those liners aren't the most expensive thing in the world, and it's portable, so you don't have to worry about having 10 people to try and move it.
Yep.
So I think that's the route I'm going to take when I get to the point of having to move at some point.
Yeah. Well, in our case, of course, a bedroom is my fish room. And I think by the time we're ready to sell our house, people are going to want to see it as a bedroom and not a fish room. As much as I can say, oh, just imagine this room without that giant reef tank in here. I'm not going to do it. We have to get it all cleared out and the flooring replaced because it's laminate right now. And I want to put carpet back in. But anyway, it's never fun to have to move a reef tank because you just have to, I don't know, hope you don't lose anything or much, right?
Well, I think I'm going to put I've got a 120-gallon kiddie pool that I think I would put in the new location and relocate it everything from the aquarium into the kiddie pool.
Right.
Set it up with pumps and filters and a skimmer in the pool. And then once the tank was in this new location, just transfer everything out of the kiddie pool back into the aquarium and add the extra water.
So,
I
Scoop and
hope
Chuck,
it's that smooth.
so your tank
Yeah.
is 12 feet long. How deep is it top to bottom?
Bear with me a moment, and we'll investigate that.
And the reason I'm
It's yeah.
the reason I'm asking is that this is something I'm wondering about moving my rock structures, because the tallest ones are about 21 inches tall. So I'm going to need a container that's 22 or 23 inches tall and then have to fill it with enough water to cover the structure. Like, it really worries me moving rocks intact that are covered with encrusting and really healthy coral. I just can't even imagine how I'm going to do that, even one piece at a time.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Lots
there.
of Rubbermaid containers, and hopefully they're not out of water for longer than the
Hello?
tide is out. Yeah, hello?
Can you guys hear me?
Did you?
Yeah, we hear
I
you.
can hear
Oh,
you hear
good,
us?
good. I just hit something on my
Hear you
keyboard and
fine.
it made a
Yep.
noise. So anyway, sorry. So how deep is it?
It's 28 inches deep, I believe. I don't
28
have a tape
inches.
measure with me. Oh, hang on a
Right.
second. I do. Bear with me. Probably proved myself wrong now.
Because some of your rocks are quite tall in there, and I was just wondering, would you lay them down in the kiddie pool, or
Right.
how would you keep them?
But they'll come apart. It's all Marco rock, and a lot of them aren't fused together in any way. So we have it. It's 26 inches, if you're correctly at the bottom of the tape there. It's 26 inches
Okay.
from top to bottom.
Right.
And oh, come on, this tape measure's not cooperating. 24 inches across. And
144 inches long.
And
We know this one.
Yeah. The tape measure's not cooperating with me. Bear with me a minute. Yeah. And I don't know if you can. And 140. What is
Oh, we're losing you, I think.
it sits on cinder blocks.
144?
The frame sits on the cinder blocks. Yeah. And
Right.
20-gallon sump underneath. So it
20?
sits on a wooden frame, and it's got a plywood, flooring plywood that I put down, 1 inch, or what is it? Yeah, 1 inch thick plywood underneath of that, so I could stand on it.
Wow.
And the glass is separate from the frame. The frame is separate. So the last time we had it moved, it was $700. It was to get it moved by the moving company.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just have them do it again.
Right.
Like about, I think it was about 8 or 10 guys that they had come in and lift everything and move it.
Holy smokes. That's craziness. So ATF yeah. ATF in the house has a question about alkalinity and pH that's constantly wanting to decrease. Is it a good sign for tanks or bad sign? Following trends. So I'm not sure what that part of it means, but I always took it to mean that there was growth going on if the alk was decreasing. I'm not sure how else to interpret that.
Well, I would separate the pH and the DKH relationship. Just because while it is called alkalinity. It's not a true measure of alkaline. It's bicarbonate.
Yes, I was doing some reading about that, and it depends on what type of alkalinity you're adding to maintain your levels of DKH, whether it's, as you said, bicarbonate or some other type, or salts, or I'm probably getting the terms all wrong, but essentially there are different
I
ways
dose.
to increase alk, but it depends on which way you use, whether it affects your pH and how.
I think it's the oxygen more affects the pH. I found
Yeah.
when I put the glass on the aquarium, the pH leveled out, and it gets oxygenated when it goes down the overflow and in the skimmer.
Right. So, Skookum
I
Chuck,
haven't checked the pH for a long time.
yeah. So if you have glass lids, that helps keep the pH elevated as long as you've got gas exchange and oxygenation going on.
I'm
Would you
trying to
say?
remember how it works. If you add oxygen, it lowers the pH, and if you add CO, it raises the pH. I could have that backwards. It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, the increase in oxygen will generally raise the pH. CO2 is acidic, so that would have lowered the pH.
Okay.
So I remember somewhere like if you open if your pH was high, open the window or something like that.
Well, if you open a window, like, isn't it okay? pH is driven down with excess carbon dioxide in the water. So if you add
Okay, then it
oxygen
would be covering it up.
yeah, if you add oxygen to displace the carbon dioxide, it can go up, right?
Yes.
Right.
It's late. I'm tired. Hey, Nat King Reef.
So,
And I was just reading about this
I
a little while ago. Hi, Insane Reefer. Yeah, I'm looking at my email and all inboxes, and I'm not seeing anything from you if you've emailed to me. Hey, Jesmosis. Okay, I think that's everybody. Sean's Fish Tank says, opening my windows makes my acros look great. I can believe that. Well, I did a 7-gallon water change as part of the maintenance yesterday on my big tank. And my fox coral, I have never seen that thing so huge as after I did that water change. And part of what we did ended up stirring up some gunk in the sump. So, of course, I'm freaking out thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have another crash, because that's what's happened before. But everything in the tank actually looked happier. So I don't know whether the gunk was a lot of maybe miracle mud that got blown out of the baskets. I have no idea, but dodged a bullet.
kind of food, yeah. Well, if it made it happy, that's a good thing. Happy is good.
Scott, you asked a question. What was it? Let me see if I can find it. Oh, this one. What's the best size tank for an angelfish? Any okay in a 3-foot 60-gallon? 3-foot 60-gallon.
What kind of angelfish?
Yeah, I guess that's important to know. That was about 9:53, that question, our time. Yeah, it depends,
And I
Scott,
hate
what
to
type
do
of
this.
angelfish you're looking at, really.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry.
dwarf angel or emperor angel, big difference.
Yeah.
And I hate to have to do this. I'm going to have to book off simply because my battery is going to calve on me here. So I'm going to plug my phone in and I'll be able to talk to you on chat. I hope everybody has a great night.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me on, Reefgrrl.
All
and it was
right.
really good talking to you, Alex. That was a really nice aquarium and setup you've got.
Well, thanks. It's nice meeting you too.
Awesome. Thanks, Gook.
See everybody later. Thanks again. Bye.
So Scott says any. So any angelfish. Well, I guess the dwarf angels.
Yeah, a dwarf would work well in there, but anything that's going to be like a full size angel, I would probably say that would be a no. Just because the size they get, the aggression, and um, one thing I would say too is if you're planning to do coral in the tank that you want to keep the angel in, be mindful that other than like the Genacanthus, you pretty much got a 50-50 shot whether or not they find your corals to be tasty treats. And that's why I don't keep any in my reef tank, and they're all in the big fish tank. But yeah, flames, coral beauties. There's some of the easy ones. Lemon peels aren't too bad. Flame backs. Which could I put in a third 60 gallon? Oh, like a third extra tank? I would say in either case 60 gallons I would stick to some kind of dwarf angels. You still in Reefgrrl or
Yep, here I am. Sorry, I was muted. Insane
I was like,
reefer.
wow, you got pretty quiet there all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That was
That's unlike me.
yeah.
Insane reefer, I did send you the link. And Scott, we're not quite sure what you mean by a third 60 gallon. Yeah, he said no corals. Okay. Just catching up with the chat here. Yeah, the Genacanthus melanospilus is what I have. There's also Genacanthus lamarckii and Genacanthus bellis. And I cannot remember who it is who is having problems with, I want to say the Lamarck eating their coral. Was that you, Alex? No. Okay. Oh dear.
Sorry, trying to grab a slide cover and
Oh, maybe we get some microscope.
yeah, I'll throw it on. That was one of the things that I like about this one is that it has a trinocular scope, so I could look at it and have the phone on it without having to compromise the binocular vision.
Right.
So I'm just gonna find my sample syringe here. If I didn't dump
Yes.
it everywhere, which I did. It's okay
Yes.
though.
Scott said, thanks, guys. Sorry, I meant 3-foot predictive text. Arg. Yeah.
Let me just grab another sample. I'll be back here in a second. I'm just gonna mute.
Yeah, so I guess with angelfish, it depends on which genus, which species, how big they could potentially get. People have said dwarf angels. My Red Sea Reefer XL425 is a 4-foot, like around 88 gallon display. And I have the Genacanthus angelfish in there, and they're fully grown. And the male with the streamers is roughly 8 inches long. He's getting to be a nice big fish. And I almost feel like he's too big for this tank now. So it's a good thing later on this year I'll have more space for him. So I agree with what people have said in the chat, just from the bit that I know about angels, having, of course, like everybody, I want them. Flame angels, coral beauties I love, and realizing that with the corals I have, I can't have them. But if you don't have corals, then you probably have a really good selection of options for dwarf angels. There are, the big three are, I guess, bicolor, coral beauty, and flame angels, but there are a lot of different dwarf angels in the aquarium trade that you could get in a fish only system. So I'm really sorry it took so long to answer the question, and I hope you can go to sleep now. Good night. Looks like Alex is getting set up to do something. Oh. STL Reefer says, I'd sleep better if we could see Alex's beast skimmer once more.
I don't know if I'm doing skimmer or looking at the microscope. Hold on.
Hey, Langan and Animals, finally catching a stream. Nice to meet you. Glad you could come in. And good night, Scott Morrison. ATF is saying BRS soda ash. I'm assuming that's in response to a question.
There, I panned over to the skimmer for a second. Now I'm going to microscope time.
So you feel better now, STL? Hopefully you caught the skimmer. And Insane Reefer, I see you in the waiting room. So Alex, are you, do you have something specific you want to show us before I bring Insane Reefer in?
No, I'd bring him in and I'll
Okay.
get this set up. I got to feed the fish real quick too. So
Okay.
that will work out perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Alrighty. Hello, Insane Reefer. How are you?
Hey, what's going on? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All
Can
right.
hear you. Good. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Another week.
Yes. Oh, and Reefing with O is here, and Blue Carbon Reefing, all the latecomers after they've had their Saturday night joining us.
So what's been going on?
We've been talking about moving tanks, and Alex has been showing us his fish and answering a few questions here and there. And ATF in the house has been discussing trends in alkalinity and pH. It's funny you should say trends. That's one of the reasons I like my HANA checker for alkalinity and calcium, because the Salifert tests have ranges that are, let's call it 20 points apart. So you could test in a certain level and then the next week test in the same level, but using a HANA checker, you might have calcium of 400 one week and 419 the next week, which with your Salifert test would show the same level, but with your HANA checker shows you an upward trend. So I don't know if that's the kind of thing you mean, ATF, Alan, but I understand what you're saying about trends, and I think that's what a lot of people like about the Trident testing system, is they can spot these trends or these patterns through the day. How about you, Oscar? What do you use? Do you have any of these fancy testing things?
Well, I have all the HANA checkers as far as alkalinity, calcium, phosphate. I do for nitrates. I do Salifert. Magnesium, yep. I use Salifert.
Yep.
It's I think they're pretty good. They work for me. I heard something about maybe a nitrate for HANA coming out. So
really, I wonder how they would do that.
I don't remember where I saw it, but I heard one of the guys that work for HANA. They said, it's something that we're thinking about doing. So that's something exciting.
Well, when you think about how you test a Salifert, it's basically you mix the powder and the drops and you stir it up for 30 seconds and let it sit. So the HANA phosphate is a similar thing. You dump the powder in, you shake it up for 2 minutes, and then it sits for 3. So it kind of makes sense, since you put both the powder and the liquid in the nitrate test at the same time and not, a different. I don't know. I would love that.
I don't see why they couldn't come up with something like that. I mean,
yeah, it's all colorimeter. I mean, it's all reading the color.
So, a little bit of an update here. I got my 2 clowns in last week.
Oh, yes, nice.
I would have loved for my tank lights to be on right now, and I did drag the schedule up a little bit for longer. But then I started messing with my radions yesterday. I messed something up, and then I had to take the lights off, back up Eco Smart Live, and I had to add them again, and I just shortened the schedule because I didn't want my tanks to be running, for so
No,
long. Not
less
with the
is
lights on.
better. Yeah, less is better than more.
And I don't have that, any corals in it right now. So
Yeah.
I just have the fish. So let me flip my phone here real quick.
Okay. But wait, Oscar.
Oh,
Just
go
wait.
ahead. Go ahead.
This is the first time you've been in here, isn't it?
No, this is the second time.
Is it? Oh,
Yes.
okay. Then I guess I can't do the troll question. Darn. Okay.
I mean, you can if you want
No,
to.
it's okay.
I don't care.
That's all right. We'll let you off this time.
Yeah, this is the first time showing my face. That's it. Yeah.
It's pretty scary. It was for me the first time I did it. It's hard being out this side of the camera.
Yeah. But I guess I tried making a little video there for YouTube the other day. I don't know if I did it right. I don't even know if it uploaded. I don't know. I'm a mess. But I'm trying. I'm putting some interest in it. There's a lot of things I need to learn as far as thumbnails or however you call that. Like I said, when it comes to technology and computers, I am so dumb. So
it takes a while. I only learned about thumbnails like maybe 6 months ago. I mean, if you were to look at all of my videos, you could see sort of the evolution of thumbnails. And there's a guy called Brian G. Johnson who I subscribed to for a little while until the videos started getting repetitive. But he talks a lot about ways to have eye-catching thumbnails, and then of course CJ's Aquariums has a great tutorial series on how to use your cell phone to film your reef tank. What kind of phone do you have, or camera?
I have an iPhone.
iPhone, yeah, that's what his is using the iPhone and iMovie. And when I first started, I learned so much from watching that series. It was well worth it. And then there's music and where you get music and the ways you can manipulate the music, and
it's a lot of work. I mean, people who do it, I don't know how they have the time to do it. I mean, like for instance, Mark Levinson, he has his, he has his business, and at the same time he's doing YouTube and he's doing live streams, and I just don't know how he has the time to do all that stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it would be kind of hard because I have a full-time job.
Yes, exactly.
I work probably 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
And,
So you're in a situation where it's all you can do to keep your reef tank healthy, let alone do other things to document and share it. Yeah, it's hard. I'm retired, but when I wasn't retired, it was very, very difficult to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I get out of work and I come straight to the house, and the first thing I do is I got to go feed my fish.
Yeah.
That's the first thing because they haven't eaten all day. So, and I like automatic feeders. The only thing is I just don't trust them as much because you're just going to be dumping food in the tank. You have no control.
If something goes wrong, you got a big problem. Yeah.
And so, nowadays, I don't know if I'm going to get roasted for saying this, but nowadays you don't have to kind of care about nitrates because everybody's trying to get their nitrates up. But I still don't trust them. Right now, this tank right here, it's a new tank, the 180 I have in the basement. And for some reason, you remember when we were talking about bacteria, and I told you, they don't need to feed, but I think I was a little bit wrong on that. Because for some reason, my nitrates came up to 50 parts per million.
Whoa.
and my tank was empty. I'm like, how did it even get to this point?
Yeah.
So I reached to a couple of persons, and they were saying it was an instability as far as bacteria. So something happened there that I didn't do right. So I just winded up buying a couple of bottles of Dr. Tim's before I put the fish. because I had already ordered them, so there was no turning back.
Yeah.
And
You know, it's one of those things where I mean, I guess I'm old school in the sense that when I cycle a tank, it cycles for a good 6 weeks before I put anything in it. And I'm not in I've never had the intention of adding stuff right away or in a week or whatever. It will go through its normal what nature decrees anyway, as far as the rocks maturing, the water maturing, the sand maturing, the bacterial colonies maturing. And if you have the added complication of livestock and having to make sure they're healthy while all that's going on, because if you got nothing in your tank, no fish, no coral, and you need to do something like 100% water change, or like if something goes wrong, then all you have to worry about is what's in your tank. Well, if there's no fish or coral, you don't have to worry about them.
yeah,
And a lot of that stuff can happen during a cycle. So if your tank is still going through its biological maturity process because you've used a bacteria to cycle it and you're immediately putting stuff in, then you're risking all your livestock. And
yeah.
I don't know, I know people have been successful with it, and I think it's because they're experienced enough to know when a problem is about to happen, what the signs are, and how to deal with it. And I don't have that level of experience, so I just don't take the chance.
So far, it's been a week since I've had them. Well,
Yep,
it's gonna be a week,
yep,
and they're happy. I mean,
yep,
they
yep,
were eating the same day they came in.
yeah,
I've had made some tests. I don't see any ammonia
yep,
popping up, so I guess that's a good sign.
yeah. Well,
I
when you get high nitrates, isn't that when your cycle is finished and you have to do that first
well,
water change?
yes, that's what I heard, but to be honest, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
they said it was instability. I guess I don't know.
who knows?
To me, nitrates means cycle.
Yeah, it means nutrients are in excess of the bacteria that can process them.
But my thing is, and I don't know if I ever noticed this or not, because I've done nitrate tests at when I was finishing a cycle. I didn't do it on the 29 gallon. I'm guilty of that. I never did. I just said, you know what? It's been a month and a half, almost 2 months. I'm putting fish in there, and
Yeah,
but I did not remove the shrimp the whole month.
yeah, yeah.
The difference about this one is that I did remove the shrimp within 3 days because they were already starting to rot. But my question is, even though I removed them, I mean, the cycle should still, keep on going as far as, okay, you got ammonia. After ammonia, you got nitrite. After nitrite, you got nitrate. So I'm assuming that's a 1 month process, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken.
Yep.
So I'm thinking I'm good as far as that. And the fish, they're not showing signs of illness
Mm-hmm.
or like they're stressed out or anything. If anything, they look happy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch the camera here so you can
Yeah.
see.
I would think after a month you should be pretty good. And
Let me see if I can find.
the thing about it is I always think of it like when you drive through a city that's got bad pollution and it smells awful. I think of
Yeah,
nitrate as like that in the water. Like it's not something that's going to actively make your fish sick. I mean, unless it gets up to ridiculous levels and then they start to get stressed and that's when they start getting sick. But if it's like 40, 50, it's like a bad smell in the water for them. So, like correcting that by water changes, maybe that's the way to go.
yeah. See if you could see them a little bit there.
Pretty. What kind are they?
This one is a mocha storm,
Pretty.
and this one's a little bit different. They sent it to me. They said, "We sent you this one because we believe it was the one of the prettiest colors we had as far as the mocha." So it kind of looked the color that it has. It's more like the mandarins. They have those nice round patterns
Yep.
on them. So this one, I say it has a similar pattern to that one. The black one looks way more like a storm than this one does, but they're still storms. Let me see if I can find the black one. He was somewhere around here.
Yeah.
The black one is the smallest one. Here he is right here.
Oh, yeah. Good night, Benny. Thanks for coming by.
And you wouldn't believe the price on these two little fish.
Is it a lot?
No, I'm saying it's a
Oh,
good thing.
oh,
Comparing to other websites, I got these for $100 a piece.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, my LFS, who was going to take a whole bunch of stuff to the Niagara Coral Show, and of course now it's been postponed to July, they're having huge sales on a whole lot of coral that's pretty wild. I was in the store and I saw it, but it wasn't for sale yet because it was going to the Coral Show. They also have all kinds of designer clowns at ridiculously low prices because they were going to be show specials. So I guess if you know where to look.
Yeah. Here I go. Now I started with the look at my cabinetry here now. I have the cabinetry on and
Looks nice. Yeah, I remember this now. I remember
Yeah.
this aquascape when you first did it. Remember
Yeah.
you came on and talked for an hour about an empty tank?
oh yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. I was saying, I know guys, it's an empty tank, this and that, but I think it went pretty good. I mean, everybody was liking the aquascape and all that. So.
Yep,
Looks
for
nice.
sure.
Yeah.
So are you going to be getting your clowns an anemone?
You know what? I don't know. Reason is because I don't want it to be running around, and I don't want it spreading. So I don't. I like anemones, but I would like them if they could be just one, and they wouldn't split.
Right.
Because once they start splitting, they're going to take over your tank. So.
Well, am I right in thinking, I don't know, Alex, you probably know this, but the hadoni or any of the other, there's one other kind of carpet anemone, are they prone to splitting the same way as the bubble tips or the ones that live up on the rocks?
No, not necessarily, but getting into carpets, they're more likely to eat your fish.
Yeah, and they get huge. Yeah.
Is that the Gigantea?
Yeah, the Giganteas, Magnificas will. Those can split. They do get very large. Sabays get really large. I don't know if I've seen one split before. But, if you're worried about bubble tips walking around, the best way to combat that is to put them on a rock island on the sand because they don't like to walk across the sand.
Yeah, something like this. Well, I have like a little separate island right here, right? See
that has a lot of good crevices in it too.
Yeah, my big bubble tip that's like bigger than a dinner plate now is still on a couple of rocks, and it's kind of reached a little bit with its side, but it's not its foot moving, so I'm not too worried. But yeah, they don't like to cross sand.
They could become parachutes though. Because I've seen them.
The only my experience with bubble tips, if they start releasing from the rock and free floating, it's because something very drastic has changed in the tank. I heard a lot of people back when ran metal halides. I had a few buddies that, they'd swap their bulbs out, and as soon as they did that, their anemones would either go marching or splitting like crazy because it was such a change. But I mean, I haven't had too many problems with that. My anemone, my bubble tip has basically been in its place for, probably 2+ years now. It has not moved.
See, I never had luck with anemones for some reason. They either tend to shrink and basically lose their polyps and kind of fade away. I don't know why. I had one in the 90 once, and that one did good for at least 7 or 8 months, and then it kind of just started shrinking and went away.
Yeah, I would say with your tank being so new, I would wait till your tank gets more established before trying an anemone. They just tend to, well, I've had some decent experience with them in newer tanks. A lot of people I know that deal with them on a more of a business side. That's they don't like to add them to tanks until they've been established for several months. They just tend to take hold and do better.
You know what's interesting, Oscar? I noticed that your clownfish are swimming all over the tank. Well, this one is near one end, but the black and white one is going all over the place.
They both do it. Like they're in the right corner right now. In the mornings when the lights turn on, they're going to be on the left side.
Right.
They do travel from side to side.
So they haven't really picked a spot yet.
No. See, just when I'm about to feed them, they come here to the right because I've been feeding them here on the right. So
Yeah.
I kind of want them on this side, but I guess that's whatever they want. but I kind of want them this side because I have my couch over here and I would like to sit down and just, and look at them.
Watch them, yeah.
Yeah. If I want to see them, I'm going to have to get up and come all the way down to this corner and check them out.
Yeah. They're so tiny, but they'll grow fast.
Yeah. The ones I have upstairs, they were about this size. And it's been almost, I'd say I've had them in a tank for 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they have already grown at least half an inch. So,
yeah.
And they are so fat ever since I started adding that Zelcon.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God, they blew up.
Yeah.
I've noticed the difference. Like in these past couple of days, I told my wife, what the hell is wrong with this clownfish? And he's like bloated, like he eats everything.
Yep. I just realized the other day, I've had my clownfish for almost 5 years. And I got them when they were the male was about an inch long. And the female was slightly bigger than that. They were a bonded pair. And I'm pretty sure they're full grown now. They must be by now. And the female is about 3.5 inches and the male's probably just under 3 inches. So they're a nice size.
Yeah, they look nice when they get real nice and fat. That's when they look their best. They kind of get that. On this one, they told me that the patterns might stretch up a little bit. I didn't like them. Yeah, I didn't like them at first because I was like, that doesn't look like a storm clownfish, but it is. I mean,
I guess it's like puppies. If you are looking for a puppy with good markings, you're supposed to get the darkest color pup in the litter that you can, because those are the ones that retain most of the markings that they're supposed to have. This is just, I can't remember which breed it was I was looking at, but apparently the darker they are when they're really young, the more markings they have as they get older. And that one looks like it's got a fair number of marks on it. So
yeah,
they'll probably spread out.
it kind of looks like a Dalmatian. It has one big brown spot like in the middle. That's what I like about it. It kind of looks like a mandarin, but it's a clownfish.
Yeah, and it's got that big spot on his tail too. That's cool.
Yeah. Now the black one has more.
Yeah, AL says Phil, Reef Keeper, has a clownfish that is over 25 years. Wow.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
That's a lot because I've heard they only last around 20 years.
Yeah. Good night, Sean's Fish Tanks. Thank you for coming by. Yeah, my goldfish right now are 16 years old this year. And we're going to have to move them on to a new home because we don't plan on having a pond in our new house.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to handle.
Yeah.
I have this one. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Producer Reef is asking if there's such a thing as green cyano. He thought it was algae because he can brush it off. I think there is, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I have some in my sump.
Yeah.
There's green forms.
It's very stringy. And somebody asked earlier, Alex, what you were showing us.
I threw a tiny little sample of refugium scum water from the top of the Chado onto a slide.
Oh my goodness. And how many times magnification is this?
You are at, oh jeez, now I gotta look at the objective. That is 100x right now.
Wow. Thanks, Oscar. That is really,
Hey, you're welcome.
I can hardly wait to see that tank develop. That's going to be a beauty.
Yeah, I got lots of plans for it. I'm going acros on it all the way. So, well, not all the way. I love zoas. I'm a zoa guy, so I am going to do zoas, and
Yep.
I might have some LPS maybe,
Yep.
and I do have to have a torch. So, next thing I'm thinking about is probably getting me one of them Aussie Gold torches.
Yep. And so how long's that tank been up now? About a month?
This one's been around up a month and a half already.
Month and a half? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard in the beginning. The first corals I put in my tank were leathers when I set it up because I was moving everything from my other tanks. And it took me probably 4 to 5 months before I finally moved everything over because I wanted to go really slowly. And I was afraid. I didn't, I hadn't had such a big tank before. I didn't know what the balance was going to be. And so I just sort of went really slow.
It's always scary when you have to move a tank.
Yep.
I remember when I moved to where I used to live to this house. It was a 90-gallon, and in the process, I didn't even set it up the same day that I moved it. I kept everything in the brute trash cans. That was my rock, my zoas, and whatever I had. Green Star Polyp, you couldn't even kill that with fire. And my fish were in there. Unfortunately, my yellow tang lost his eye because I think a rock fell on it.
Oh no!
And yeah, he lost an eye. He kind of looked like a pirate afterwards. I still had him like for another year after that, until my tank developed a very large algae problem. So I said, you know what? And I started losing fish. I had 2 engineer gobies that were about 2 feet long.
Oh my goodness!
I lost one of those, and then my tank started leaking.
Oh no!
So I got in contact with an LFS that had opened up like 2 weeks before my tank started leaking, and they helped me out as far as taking everything. They gave me $200 for all the fish and the rock. I wasn't even gonna take the money. I was just I just needed the help, and so you know what, if you could keep them, and I know I'm gonna build another tank, if you could keep them for a while, and I'll pick them up if I have to give you something for food, so you could so you could watch them for me or whatever. Or if not, just keep them or whatever for the help. He said, "No, man, I'm gonna give you $200 just for the shit." I didn't have many fish left though, so he did that. He helped me out, and then come to see, at the time, it wasn't even the tank. I think it was in the plumbing. Because, yeah, it wasn't even the tank because then after that, I had the tank and I filled it up and I left it filled up for like a couple of weeks and there was no leakage whatsoever. So I said, you know what? I'm going bigger then. I'm going to get a 180. And I sold that one for like $250 with a stand and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blue Carbon Reefing wants to know if you got your yellow tang and eye patch.
Well, that was one of the fishes that I gave the LFS, and he lost it at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of lucky in a way. I only have to move my tank contents, and I'm hoping to set it up so that I get this 90 ready and get everything moved in. It is about 3 inches less from front to back than what I have now. But my rockscape, I designed it to be a minimum of 3 to 4 inches away from the glass. So when I move the rocks over, they're going to be very close to the glass, but I'm pretty sure they're all going to fit. And then the new tank will be built and it'll be delivered, like installed, set up, cycled. And I'm going to be running back and forth between the new house and my daughter's house where the tank will be for however long it takes. I have no idea how long that'll be. So it's going to be an interesting process to document because there's so many things I have to do. I haven't got a clue how I'm going to do them. So
and as far as dosing, do you have a calcium reactor or are you dosing 2-part?
Right now I'm dosing using a dosing pump, the Balding Light method, and Kalkwasser. I do have a calcium reactor. And hey, everybody, I scored some Reborn.
Wow, where?
One of the stores had 1 bag of the coarse stuff and 2 bags of the little stuff. So I bought it. And I have a calcium reactor, which I've never run. I don't have all the pieces for it. I don't have a regulator, CO2,
I
none
don't
of
have
that stuff.
I don't have none of that stuff either.
Yeah.
All I have is a
anyway.
calcium reactor. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will run that on the new system, but I mean things like you're right, dosing. It's got to go into the tank because I'm running it on a canister filter. Doesn't have a sump. And ATO, I'm if Just Got a DIY is still in here, I have to hit you up on Instagram. I want to design a 3-sided acrylic box that I can place against the back wall of the tank. It'll have an open bottom and an open top, but 3 sides to it. My idea is that the water inside that box should stay relatively calm, while the rest of the water outside the box is going to be moved around by power heads, and the surface is going to be all over the place, so that I can put my ATO sensor within that calm area. I have no clue whether it's going to work, but I can't think of any other way to do it.
They have those little boxes that they sell.
Yep.
You could put them in the tank and it'll just keep your sensor
Yep.
so it won't go crazy and it'll be just dumping water in there.
Exactly, because it just needs to be level, just a small enough area to hold the sensor so that it's not constantly going up and down because of the power heads. So I've run a tank with a canister filter before, and I developed a couple of different ways to do some surface skimming and things like that. It's a lot of work, but it's only going to be temporary, so we'll see. But my acropora are doing so well right now. Everything is just looking so beautiful, and I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, I lost my red dragon. Remember I told you a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, fell into the elegance.
No, it bleached out. I moved it. It's what happened.
Okay.
I think I put it under too intense lighting upstairs, and I lost my strawberry shortcake.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a hard one. Even though it wasn't that expensive, because I only paid $20 for each one, but still, it was a pretty coral. So.
Yep, they are beautiful.
But I think it had to do more as far as I think it was probably the lighting, because I just moved it from one side, and it wasn't even that high of a par. That's how we could, you never know as far as how to move corals or anything. You say, okay, this acro could probably support 100 par plus, and where I put it, it didn't have not even 80 par.
Mm. Yeah, because usually lower light won't kill it. It's when you start burning it. Hey, Drew Janes, nice to see you again. Glad you could come in.
But I don't know. I guess whenever I get this one running, I have the calcium reactor set up and everything.
Yeah.
It should be more stable.
Yeah. That's what they say with the calcium reactor. And the thing about balling light is that when you prepare the solutions, you add trace elements to each one, except you don't add it to the magnesium. You only add it to the calcium and the alkalinity. And so if you also dose trace elements like I do, Coral Essentials, you have to be really careful about how much of your calcium and alkalinity you supply using the 2-part, using the the salts. So I also have Kalkwasser, and now I'm at the point in my tank where I'm having to increase the Kalkwasser dose because the calcium and alkalinity in the 2-part is as high as I want it to be. Otherwise, I'm going to be overdosing the trace elements. Like if you start putting too much of that stuff in, you start putting in too many trace elements, you don't know where you are. You don't know how much is getting in there. And my calcium and alkalinity with the balling have been way out of whack. I put in about 48 mils a day of the balling of alkalinity and about 16 mils of calcium. That's been what my tank has needed. Hardly any magnesium, 2 mils a day. And that balanced it out, except now everything's growing. the demand for alkalinity and calcium has gone through the roof. So the kalkwasser steps in because that doesn't cause me to add too much in terms of trace elements. Like, it's such a balancing act. And at the beginning, I just thought it was, oh yeah, you figure out how much you need according to your tests. And,
Yeah.
you know, as it goes up, you just increase it. But then you reach that tipping point where you realize it's too much. You can't keep adding that much because you also get the ionic imbalance with the salts that come from this method of dosing. So it's crazy. So that's why a calcium reactor does away with all of those issues.
Do you, whenever you do a water change, let's say, I don't know how much you do as far as water, 5-10 gallons of water, maybe every 2 weeks, or however you do it. Do you, let's say your tank is at 8.5 and your new salt mix is at 7.2, which is mine is at that point. I have to buffer it up a little bit just to put it in the tank.
Yeah, I've done that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have done that because I have Clam REEF calcium. And that's what I use to boost when I need some sort of an extra dose. Because not only do I dose kalkwasser and the balling method, I also dosed, reef carbonate. That's what it is, reef carbonate. I also dose the Clam reef carbonate in small quantities. And there have been times when I've had to bump up my water tote after I mix the salt water and it's come up low. So I just because you can do the math. It's right on the bottle how to bump it up per volume. And so I just dump some in there, let it stir around for a while, and then I use it. Yeah, I've done that. So that's why I really wish there were some easier testing method because, you know, one of these monitor things, I'm not a Neptune person, so I won't be using that. But if something like Mindstream came along again and was actually real, like a real thing,
that would be sweet.
it would.
What about the Reef Bot? That one, you could use your regular test kits.
Yeah, I don't have space for something the size of a sewing machine beside my tank. And, you know, like, it struck me as really noisy and like, yeah, no, it's not quite there yet. The technology is just, I am not good with technology that doesn't work perfectly, especially if it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
I get very frustrated and it's like, why am I beta testing this when I paid all this money? So yeah, that's just me.
Hannah checkers are pretty good. I say,
yeah.
Mark has a term as far as, he says lazy ass reefer syndrome or something like that.
Yeah, Lars, yeah.
So
yes.
I like to do my water testing every week because, you know, it's just redundancy. You know, you never know when something's gonna go out of whack. Even testing once a week, you check your alkalinity and it probably dropped 5-6 points.
Yeah.
In that week.
Well, my alkalinity was up to 10.6 because I was bumping it in order to do a whole bunch of fragging. And I cut probably 30 Montipora frags off of my Starburst, Season's Greetings, and Naughty Spiral. And they spent a week and a half in my tank healing before I took them to the fish store because I don't like to take them in until the cut edges are all healed over. So it took about 10 days for that to happen. And during that time, I was super busy. I'm still going to my daughter's to stay over one night a week, 2 days, one night to help out with my grandson. And because her husband works out of town. And so I wasn't able to get the testing done. And I think it was last week on the live stream or maybe the week before I talked about that. And I thought it had gone down to around 7, but it was actually like 7.8 or 7.9. So it wasn't that bad, but it went from 10.6 down to just below 8 in maybe 2 weeks.
But if you're accustomed to having it, you know, at that range, it's kind of hard to say, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay.
But I like it at around 8.5. That's where I'm comfortable when the tank's normal and everything's good. But I knew there was going to be healing going on, and Montipora really suck up the DKH when they're healing. And so that's why I bumped it so high. So last time I tested it was 8.3. So,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Mine was around 8.2 the last time I tested it. My calcium was a little bit high. It was around 455, more or less.
Yeah.
My
That's not
magnesium,
bad.
not too bad. My magnesium was around 1365. It wasn't too bad either.
Yeah.
My phosphates, I was surprised. My phosphates were at 0.04.
Oh, that's good.
That's a perfect range for me.
Yeah.
And my nitrates, they stay the same, 25.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my nitrates have crept up in the big tank, and just some of the corals that my acropora that I was finally getting to more pale, delicate colors have all gone solid green again. So,
yeah.
but they're healthy. I mean, the polyps come out after the lights are out, and they're waving around. They're doing well. It's just that little fine tuning to get the color.
Now my question is, because I've only been doing SPS for about almost a year now,
Hmm.
since I started that little 29-gallon. Uh, my Montipore is growing, and I think it's doing pretty good. Um, is it normal for the center, which is the original part that I bought, to be darker than the edge that is already growing?
Yeah, the growing edge is always lighter. So as soon as you start seeing that light edge, you know that it's growing.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I know
not white,
you can
not
see the white.
white.
Well, you can see the white rim around it. That's when you know it's growing.
Yeah,
That, at least that's what I've noticed.
that's right.
But
There's a difference between skeleton and tissue. So in a Montipora, what I found is that the tissue can be white, but the skeleton is not exposed. If the skeleton starts becoming exposed, like you can see if you look at it on an angle, because even though the edge looks white, you can see the edge if the tissue's starting to recede. Because I've had a
oh
couple
yeah,
cases where that's happened, where the tissue has been receding, and then I've found out that like one of the snails has been crawling across or whatever in a new growing area, and it's affected the tissue. Yeah, snails crawl all over my Montiporas too. So they're going from one place to another, I guess. I don't know.
when I bought that Montipora, it was around 3 inches in diameter all around, and right now it's about probably, I could say, 4 inches and a half.
Yeah.
So it's way bigger
Yeah,
than
they
what I
grow
got it.
fast.
Yeah. So I might have to start fragging soon to kind of start putting them in frag plugs
Yeah.
and try moving some here in a couple of months.
Yeah. Yep. We should see. People are asking what Alex is showing us. Let's put it on Alex and see what he's got going on here. Alex, you're doing some exploration.
Yeah, how do I sound? Because I'm kind of talking a little distant.
It's a little hollow, but very clear.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking through the microscope right now, so the phone's on top of it.
So this is the stuff that you just pulled out off of the water just above the Cato, or some?
Yeah, there's just a little bit of scum up there, and it's literally like a couple drops of it. So there's a pod that looks like it has eggs. So
Wow.
I could go up to one more tower here.
I thought it was the moon at first. I was like, is that the moon?
No, those are...
So are those eggs inside the body of the pod, or is that where they've laid them?
No, that's like a little... some of the pods will run around with them and carry them. So it just happens to be one that's doing that.
Man, it's a whole other world. Oh yeah, I can see what you mean. There's the body of the pod.
Yeah, let me...
Like the sort of thorax. Wow.
Yeah, they got some pretty fine details on them.
That's amazing.
And then this is a worm.
Wow.
of some kind. Don't know what, but it's some kind of worm.
I think every time we see you with this thing, Alex, we all say to each other, gloves. This is why you wear gloves when you put your hands in the tank. Save the pod babies.
Come on now,
Yes.
this doesn't look all that scary.
No, it's just that worm looks so long. It's probably not even like a nanometer long or something.
Yeah, it's all this stuff is pretty darn tiny, and I do have a way to kind of measure from my eyepiece, but I don't have the math on hand to do it. Let's see, I'll go. This is 400 power. So this stuff is really tiny. You
Wow.
could probably make out all the cilia waving
Wow.
around the mouth and everything.
Crazy.
Think about bacteria. That's how it must look.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can see, I mean, there's tons of little flagellates, and this little guy in the center's kind of got like a long little tail hanging. It gets even crazier if you go to 1,000 power, but I got to put oil on the slide for that.
What kind of oil do you use?
They have immersion oil that you can put on slides. When you get to 1,000x or 100x power, you got to have the oil between the slide and the objective. But it's really narrow depth of field, so you don't get to see a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's amazing the little critters that are running around. That's why I always am such a big proponent of microfauna.
Yeah.
All this stuff gets eaten by something, and
It's the food chain.
Yeah.
yep.
You can see those moving around right now. They're kind of transparent.
Oh, that's a new one. That little
Oh,
egg.
we're watching this little thing have lunch right here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if. Oh, there's another worm.
Yep.
Oh, its head's right up here. I mean, this is like 3 drops of water.
Wow.
So it's amazing the amount of life that's in this small, tiny amount.
So what would consume this large critter that's moving around? Would that get eaten by an amphipod or?
I would think so. Let me go all the way back. So this is 40 power. Actually, is it 40 power? Jeez. Yeah, this is like 40 power. So let's see. It's probably going to be a copepod or amphipod lunch if I could find one. So let's see.
There's one.
All right, so dead center there is one of those thingamajiggers, and
That looks like a peanut.
yeah. And then there's a really tiny copepod. I mean, these guys are still tiny.
So when you have the drop of water between the two slides, is there a gap that's large enough that the copepod could move around?
Not with this cover slip, no. Some of them, not for something that size. But for some of the smaller stuff, like this little guy, there's enough water still.
Wow.
Oh, this one's actually kind of sitting still, so let's see if we can't get close. There you go. Great shot of the little cilia, and of course now it's going to move.
So these things would be omnivores, I'm assuming? Like are they herbivores?
Honestly, on this, I have no idea.
Like typically, what would you think? Do you think it's eating algae, or would it be consuming other
I think
critters?
at this size, it might be consuming some, but it might do bacteria. It might do some of the other microorganisms. Hard to say because I mean it's kind of scraping at what's there, but I haven't exactly seen it suck something up and eat it either.
No, it's been moving around a lot, and things have been moving out of its way, but it hasn't actually been.
Yeah, I'd have to do some research to try to identify what it is, and it's at this size level. I mean, you can get some ideas, but exact species, probably not going to find that.
No. Nope. Once again, we're down to DNA. If anybody even has a record of it.
I'm sure, you'd be surprised that, a lot of this little stuff. I mean, one of the ostracods I got into, at least understanding kind of a genus of it or a phyla, a family of it is, I have a strong suspicion it was from the Caribbean, and the ones I found that looked close to it were from Australia and Iceland. So,
Oh boy.
they got some similar characteristics, but one of the scientists that I chat with periodically online, they're like, yeah, for all you know, that's a new species. So you just never know. There's just so many tens of thousands, if not millions, of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Things we haven't even discovered yet.
This is 3 drops of water too. So, I mean, when I get maybe another week, I'll get it set up and I'll do 1,000x. I mean, there is a whole lot more stuff that's swimming in here that you can't even really hardly see at this magnification.
Wow. I can't believe how much of it is moving around. That's what always amazes me.
Yeah, back off in power a bit. Sometimes there's some little fast movers in here that they'll zip across this and they'll do it real quick. And for stuff being so tiny, it's amazing how quickly they can move.
I wonder if I could use a microscope. I have really bad vision in my left eye, but my right eye is not bad.
You should be able to because the eyepieces independently focus.
Oh, okay.
So the phone is attached to a vertical tube called the trinocular.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have binocular vision to look through with both my eyes, but there's a focusing knob. Oh, there's one. Look how fast that little thing's going.
Oh my.
I mean, that thing's got to be like running marathon speed when it takes off.
Wow.
Which, of course, now it's not going to.
It's like a mouse running across the living room. So those strands that are really fine that look like short hairs, are they vegetative or like vegetation of some type?
It's probably some form of cyano or algae. It's just literally the little scum off the top of the water. I just sucked it up with a syringe and just threw a couple of dots on the slide. Oh, there's a diatom of some form.
Which the big round thing?
Right in the center there, yeah.
Oh, that's moving.
Yep. The only reason I know that it is because some of the bioluminescent ones I look at have a similar type of body shape.
Huh. Alex, were you ever able to acquire any further types of bioluminescent organisms? You'd mentioned a while back.
No, not at this time. I'm going to get a hold of some bioluminescent bacteria and some more diatoms. I got a little bit more prepped for being able to split cultures, and I might set up a tank for something else eventually, but no guarantees that'll happen. But I'm always on the lookout. It's not something that really is in aquarium trade. It's all on the scientific research on. So
Yeah, and I can imagine that it's not, I mean, it's got to be regulated to some degree.
it all comes in. It's a lot of that type of stuff is all looked at the same way as ornamental exports are. You got to apply for research. Like if you want to go and collect yourself, depending on where it is, you'll need to apply for research permits for the country you want to export from. And then you have to look at CITES to determine if it's a species on the CITES list. If it is, then you're going to have to go through that process. The stuff that I have looked for is not on that list, fortunately, to my knowledge.
Okay, I'm imagining you go scuba diving, you get your scraper out, you scrape some rock into a little baggie, and you bring it home. Is that what we're talking about?
That's a possibility.
Like how is that how that stuff would be collected, or would you go to Puerto Rico and look at the bioluminescent bay and try and grab some of the stuff out of the water? Like I'm trying to imagine how you would collect it, and then what you would do to actually acquire the proper permits.
So you have to go. So like places like, and like Puerto Rico, that bioluminescent bay is primarily for bioluminescent diatoms, and it is a protected area. So
Yeah.
you can never just go in and just take things. And
right. Yeah. No.
They would more than likely have to get a hold of their Department of Fisheries or Natural Resources, and a lot of them, if you start looking into it at specific countries or territories, you could determine who you need to talk to, application fees, and I have been talking to some of the scientific community and just building some relationships with them because it's not something that you rarely ever see in the hobby.
No.
And I have more of a scientific pursuit on it anyways, so
the bioluminescent stuff you've seen in your own tanks, does it reproduce readily?
It does. How readily, I couldn't say for sure. Some of it I know is small. I've only identified a couple of organisms such as Medusa, or not Medusa, but spaghetti worms that are bioluminescent. It's incredibly difficult to find this stuff, and that's part of the reason I've been looking for some other specific organisms to research, because my challenge here is that being able to, seeing the light's one thing, but actually trying to capture it and identify it is incredibly difficult, because they have a finite supply of that, the luciferin or luciferase, which is the chemicals that allow them to create that light.
Mm-hmm.
So once they have exhausted that supply, they won't produce light. So you scoop them up. A lot of them, it's a defensive mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
So you disturb them, they flash, and then you pour them into a tray of sand, and they flash, and then you're trying to poke at them, poke a stick through the sand. and then when you see a flash, you got to try and get it into a tiny little, petri dish, and then see if you can find out what it is, and then poke it while you're looking at it with a microscope.
And it's all in the dark.
Yes, that's the other thing, is that it has to be. That's why I do not run my refugium reverse day-night cycle anymore, is because I need to be. I don't have to be absolute total darkness. A little bit of light in the tanks from like the Radion indicator lights is not too detrimental, but any kind of indicator lights that are like a direct light source to your eyes, it'll totally trash your vision.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
being in the basement is helpful, and it has taught me that whenever I plan next, I will make plans to try and achieve close to absolute darkness.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so cool. I just picture you with this headset with giant magnification goggles on, that in the pitch dark with a stick trying to poke at stuff.
The one article that I wrote for Reef to Reef, I think it was my second one, or actually no, maybe it was my first, that I talked a lot about how I was doing it, and my wife thinks I'm kind of crazy because I'll take her downstairs every now, and I'll be like, "See that? Did you see that?" And she's like, "Yeah, so what?"
Unimpressed.
And I know some of the organisms that I have, they are probably consuming other organisms, and they are producing light, but they aren't the ones that produce the chemicals. That it's just an organism repurposing it, which is something I found out about a lot of organisms like brittle stars, or a good example is like flashlight fish.
Yeah.
So now they grow bacteria in their cheeks, and they're likely getting that source through consuming things in the ocean, and then they create an ideal area for it to grow, but they themselves aren't producing that bacteria necessarily.
Wow. Good night, Sean's Fish Tanks. Thank you for coming in tonight. Have a good sleep. That's just, yeah. If I had a whole other lifetime, I probably couldn't explore that nearly enough. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and it's not there's some. I got lucky. One of the big experts on it, she was a speaker at the Fermi Lab for a lecture, and I actually attended and got to meet her, and it was rather interesting because when I told her I had bioluminescent organisms in my aquarium, she didn't want to believe me.
Well, of course.
That's why I got photographic proof and video.
Well, exactly, because most people wouldn't even understand how you would acquire those images. Like, how would you even notice that in the first place? And then further to that, how you capture those images.
Well, that was a big challenge because I did it on a whim just for fun one night when my tank had just gotten live rock, and I saw a show and they talked about it, and I was like, I always thought of it being something that's in deep water, but it occurs in shallow water too. And I was like, I'll sit down and watch, and after getting the electrical tape out and taping shut all the light sources and sitting back, I saw something and I was like, oh, I missed another light source reflecting in the glass, and then I'm looking and I don't see one, and there was something glowing. So once I saw that, but I find what's interesting is that with my tank being 2.5 years old, is that these organisms have continued to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And I see, predominantly in the reef tank, I'll see green lights now. And then my frag tank, I'll see blue. The refugium tank, I don't see any because I think the fireworms ate everything that was in there.
Mm-hmm.
And in the bottoms of my sumps, if I tap them at night, I'll get blue flashes too.
That's so cool because when you think of what we put our tanks through in terms of the chemical changes and the imbalances and all of the stuff that happens from the first day of a new tank through to maturity, and you think of all the risks to the livestock that happens when you have a tank crash, and all the while, all these little tiny organisms are somehow surviving and sort of growing in population to enough of a degree that you can see them. Like, it just blows my mind.
Do
Yeah,
you
and I
think
mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you think you might have caught any nitrifying bacteria in that in the process?
Oh, just, them being in the tank for nitrifying
Well,
bacteria?
well, right here at the, you have the telescope there, and you have a
Oh,
bunch of
I
live
don't.
organisms and all that.
If I got up to 1,000x, I could see some bacteria, but identifying exactly what it is and does, that could be difficult because I'm sure in a lot of the here, I don't really have anything that's like a solid surface, and with bacteria, a lot of times, my limited experience looking at those under microscopes is that a lot of times they'll put them into an auger or something to try and get them to colonize so that they can identify what it is and have a bigger sample to put under a microscope. But I mean, you could see it with this microscope more than likely, but identifying, not something that's in my realm of expertise. I do know there's a guy out there in Reef to Reef that his business, it's like microbiome or something, that he actually takes water samples and will use, I think it's like a DNA analysis to determine what kind of bacteria are living in your tank.
Wow.
I know there was an article he was looking at writing. I don't know if he ever published it on Reef to Reef, but he writes, he does a fair amount of posting and stuff on there. But I know that was one of the things he was kind of looking at was how the different bacterias affect the health of a tank.
You just can't dump a bunch of bacteria because some are going to populate the other ones.
Well, and I think the biggest thing is balance. You could dump a ton of bacteria into something, but if it doesn't have a food source, like a nitrifying bacteria, for instance, if it doesn't have a source of food, something like an ammonia or nitrite, the bacteria won't survive at really high levels. They'll balance themselves to a point to where they're consuming what they have in front of them. And that's one of the things with nitrates is because the bacteria for nitrifying bacteria versus denitrifying are the front end of the nitrogen cycle to get stuff to nitrates all involves oxygen, where the bacteria that break nitrates down into nitrogen gas, they are anaerobic and they live in environments without oxygen.
Yeah, that's what's deep in your rock, and that's one of the reasons I think that the manufactured rock that we see, the shapes and all of that, doesn't have that capability. I don't know how it can.
Well, some of it is not. Having sand is always something good. I mean, it will find places to grow, but one of the reasons that I don't use things like filter socks, media pads, other than for a couple of bubble breaks, is that those tend to allow the nitrifying bacteria that convert ammonia and nitrate into nitrate. Probably one of the most ideal environments to be overly efficient and start producing excess nitrates. Because, for instance,
Okay, yeah.
so here's a good example.
So nitrate factories.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially.
yeah,
Yeah. I
here's a
get
good
that
example.
now. I get that now that you've explained it that way. I finally understand exactly what's meant by that term.
So here's another way to look at it too. So like these 3 drops of water that are under this microscope right now. So if a piece of mysis shrimp fell into the water on top of where these things are in a day or so, because I've got a little video on Instagram even, the thing will be swarmed by microorganisms that are consuming it. So it's not breaking down by bacteria and just decaying. It's being consumed.
Right.
If you take a piece of food, though, on the other hand, and throw it into a filter sock or something with a really high rate of water flow, you're probably going to get some microorganisms that could still function there, but that high amount of water flow and the friction on the water and the presence of bacteria being an ideal environment for them, it's going to break it down through decay of bacteria, and it will get consumed that way, which is efficient in a lot of ways, but it produces a lot of nitrate.
Yep, makes total sense.
Yeah, and that's and the reason that I still subscribe to that is the fact that my very first tank had something called quicksand filters and Magnum 350 canisters. And when I had those running, I never had ammonia or nitrate problems, but my nitrates were 80 plus parts per million.
Wow.
And even doing 30 gallons actually, I was doing like 40, 50 gallon water changes in a 125 gallon tank. I could not get them lowered even doing like bi-weekly water changes. And it wasn't until I removed those and put a denitrifying filter on there that was purpose built to grow the bacteria that do denitrification that I always had high nitrates.
Huh. So then, if there, the reason for the mechanical filtration is to remove large particles from the water column. So would it make sense then to remove that stuff like daily, every 24 hours? Would that make a difference, do you think?
Yeah, so if you do remove it, and it wouldn't be just a matter of cleaning it, what you'd really have to do is swap it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I do. I don't even try and clean that stuff anymore.
You'll have to have like 50 like 50 filter socks just to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I don't use them. I tried, and I have 2 filter socks in my tank right now, and they're so clogged up that they have sponges growing inside of them because they've been in there for like 8 or 9 months. And now I don't move them. It's like a principle of a thing when I see like a filter sock post on Reef to Reef. I keep meaning to take pictures and be like, you think I should change mine since there's sponge colonies growing in them?
Yeah. Well, the sponges are doing their job. They're filter feeding in the filter socks.
Yeah, and it's just all these microorganisms, they'll break that stuff down too.
Yeah.
Again, it's not to say that it's not an effective means of filtration. It's just if you're keeping up and changing them and you're not having nitrate problems, which it was being said earlier, is that a lot of people are trying to add nitrates to their tank, and I just keep going, we'll just throw some filter pads in there and don't change them.
Yeah, exactly.
Or throw a canister filter on there and let it suck up some fish food. I mean, you'll get all the nitrates you want with no expensive chemicals.
Well, and it also makes me wonder, in my sump, Red Sea provides a sponge that goes down between the last baffle before the return chamber. So mine's got stuff growing all over it. And I've looked at it and I'm thinking, okay, at some point I should pull that thing out of there and clean it. But then I think, wait a minute, what if it has beneficial processing organisms in there? And if I pull it out and clean it, I'm going to remove all of those, not to mention disturbing who knows what if I pull it out of that baffle. So I've just decided to leave it there. Then when I take the tank down, I think I'm going to do a video of what it actually looks like after running for 3 years without touching it. because when I look at it, I see all kinds of stuff growing in there, and I just feel like it would be risky to disturb it even.
I would agree with that. And, all this micro life that's in it, it all, for as much as today everybody likes to try and, especially with parasites trying to do fallow tanks and proactively medicating fish and not using live rock and just using bacteria. I mean, all these microorganisms, there are a lot more of those in one drop of water than there are corals, fish,
Yeah.
and even copepods in the whole tank.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
That's why I'm such a big advocate of, real live rock and real live sand, and because for as much as people worry about ick and saying there's nothing in there, I mean, I can guarantee you, and I might not be able to say what, but ick and other parasites, when they settle into sand and stuff, something eats them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have those critters,
Mm-hmm.
it'll never balance.
That's true. I think we need a T-shirt that says, I like my sump dirty.
And someone just had a post on when's the last time you sucked detritus out of your sump, and I said never.
Yeah. Yeah.
The bioluminescent worms live in it. I ain't getting rid of it.
No. Yeah, it kind of gives you a different perspective, doesn't it? Everybody, when you're considering the effect that our actions have on these ecosystems. I mean, we think of our reef tank, it is a giant ecosystem that we're in charge of, but within that ecosystem are other ecosystems that we have no way of even comprehending how complex and extensive they are in there.
My plans is to run some Miracle Mud in my refugium, just so I could have some extra surface for, bugs and, whatnot.
Yep. Yeah, I have 2 3-pound baskets of it, and one needs to be replaced. But now I'm thinking it's got a lot of stuff growing on the outside of the basket. And if the tank's coming down soon, I think I might just leave it.
My sump came with like 3 separations in the refugium area. So it has like 3 different, not baffles, but, separations to where you could put Miracle Mud on each one of those compartments. And as time goes by, like, I don't know how much you would change, let's say in a period of 6 months, that has those 3, separations to where you could, okay, I'm going to change this side first, and then I'm going to change this side next, and then I'm going to change the other side next. So I think they build that sump with that purpose for like Miracle Mud.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I don't, I like having it. When I first put it in, I noticed immediate polyp extension. I don't know whether it's still contributing that, but in any case, it's a place where stuff is growing. So why not just let it grow? It's not dirty. It's not putting things into my tank that are creating problems that I know of anyway. So might as well leave it there and just let it act as a host for hopefully something beneficial.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to let you guys go. And
it's good talking to you.
Yeah,
nice
thanks,
talking to you.
Oscar. Thank you. And I'm like I said before, I really mean it. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with your tank because it's got a lot of potential. Thanks for sharing it with us again.
I'll keep the updates. Hector didn't come in today.
You know what? I saw him pop in, but he popped out again, and I've seen him in the chat here. So, and actually, I'm going to have to call it soon, too.
Yeah.
It's 11:34 p.m. That's why I've started saying 11-ish. Because, hey, Ugly Man's Reefing just snuck in. Yeah, a lot of people do join late, and I guess that's the Saturday night thing as well. But anyhow, I think I will call it a night. And thanks, Oscar, for coming in. Insane Reefer. Everybody
All
go
right.
check out his channel. Show him some love. Watch the videos. And same with Alex G's Aquarium. I don't know, Alex, it's been a while since you've had a video, has it?
Yeah, it's been like November, and
Yeah.
I might have a little more free time since I don't have to commute to work every day
Right.
for the foreseeable future.
I had someone today say they missed the little videos I used to do, and it's true. I've been so tied up with helping out with my daughter with our grandson that I have 5 videos in the queue waiting to be edited. I am going to be publishing one probably later tonight or tomorrow. And Blue Carbon Reefing, you're going to want to see that one as well. And it just is amazing how the weeks go by, and suddenly it is Saturday night again, and another week has gone by and I haven't published a video. So I'm gonna have to get on top of that.
I'm still in awe that it's the middle of March, so
Uh-huh.
it
Yeah.
feels like it's just January was just here.
Yep. All right.
So,
Well,
I'm sorry. One question before I leave.
yeah.
Do you guys have any plans as far as like, are you guys still going to the shows even though with all this craziness going on?
I don't think there will be any around me anyways, so probably cancel them all.
Yeah, I was going to go to the Niagara Coral Show, which was to be next weekend, but I said this at the very beginning of the stream. I'm immunocompromised. I've been diabetic for like 45 years, and I decided not to risk it. And then
Yeah.
a couple days after that, they announced they're pushing it to July.
Okay.
So I think that was a really responsible thing for them to do. Initially, they said they wouldn't shut it down unless the government said they had to. And then I think they just realized that, people are worried.
Yeah.
And
I was going to Reefapalooza and I canceled that as well. So
yeah. I think this thing is going to have a long-standing impact because there's so much unknown still. The epidemiologists can make all the predictions they want, but those vectors can happen, and before you know it, it heads in a totally different direction. And yeah, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There was a frag swap today I saw on Instagram somewhere, I think in Arizona maybe, but I think that might be one of the last ones we see for a while.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming in tonight. I really, really appreciate spending the time on a Saturday, and I guess we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having us, as
Yep.
always.
Thanks
All
for
right.
coming, and everybody take care of yourselves. And if you can, practice social distancing.
Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Video chat.
We have a good excuse, don't we?
Yeah,
'Cause
video
we got our
chat.
reef tanks. Yeah, exactly. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Well, now, thanks so much to everyone who came along tonight, in the studio, in the chat, and watching. And to those of you who are watching the replay, thank you too for sticking around to the end. I hope you'll join me for next week's live stream, Saturday night, March the 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a great week.